every memory a special place.
Got something you want to share to the world? We got you, fam! We are looking for awesome people like you who want to share content that deserve a spotlight on our site. Whether it's a list of everything you love about catos and doggos, pop culture related artworks, or even your own random photos, memes, and funny videos, we'd be happy to see it and share it to the world. Join our award-winning team and be part of our Ink Pop creator community.
Tired of missing the latest news? Get the Inquirer mobile app to get the latest stories and updates as they happen. The Inquirer mobile app is an easy-to-use app with quick access to stories and also enhances your experience on other Inquirer platforms. The Inquirer mobile app also lets you recommend stories for the Inquirer front page and share stories on various social platforms. Have a story to tell? Be an Inquirer reporter with the My Inquirer function. Now that's news anytime, anywhere, always.
For almost 3 decades, Robinsons Land Corporation has grown with you as an industry leader that continues to uphold its legacy in the property landscape, alongside its equally successful affiliates spread throughout the nation. As a subsidiary of one of the largest conglomerates in the Philippines, JG Summit Holdings Incorporated, Robinsons Land establishes competitive names in various industries that paved its way to becoming a trusted brand in the country. Today, a fresh perspective on Philippine real estate will take condo living to a whole new level with a bolder and stronger brand. RLC Residences is a brand that every family and young urban professional will be proud to own, allowing you to raise, live, connect. Immerse yourself with elevated lifestyle experiences, world-class design, and elegant living spaces that enrich everyday life. Experience meaningful digital solutions and innovations, spaces that work for you and your loved ones. A promise of quality that transcends everyday living. Swift connections that get you close to the action, empowering you with mobility that gives you an edge. All supportive of your quest to have a rewarding life and career. Among its extensive portfolio of prime residential developments, RLC Residences gives you the power to choose more than just an investment, but a home that lets you embrace the future with the people you share the journey with. RLC Residences raises the game and elevates lifestyle experiences, allowing you to live in the future with a balanced lifestyle while connecting with people most important to you. To top it all, these award-winning developments are curated with you in mind to make city living worth pursuing. As we step into the new chapter, creating stronger and bolder selections of prime residential developments, we continue to look forth with the same enthusiasm that blossomed 3 decades ago. The same passion and determination that brought us to where we are now. As one RLC Residences, together, we invite you to embrace the future with RLC Residences.
is the Philippines.
And we are ANC.
SharePHIL Summit Series on Reshaping the Economy Through Inclusive Business. Co-presented by Ayala Land, RLC Residences, Residential Division of Robinson's Land Corporation, and SM Investments Corporation. Today is part 1 of the Summit Series, From Bricks to Clicks, Thriving in the Digital World, and is made possible by the following sponsors. Our premium partners, BDO, GCash, Punong Bayan and Araulio, PNA Grand Thornton, Bernaldo, Directo and Po Law Offices, PLDT Home, and Smart Corporations. Patrons, Ayala Corporation, Call Financial, Marubeni Philippines, Metro Pacific Investment Corporations, Paymaya, Security Bank, and SGV and Company. Donors, Accra Law, CIBI Foundation, Manila Water, Maynilad, Ortigas Land, Wilcon Depot. And our official media partners, ANC, the ABS-CBN News Channel, Business World, the Inquirer Group of Companies, TV5, One News, and the Philippine Star. We are currently live on our YouTube channel and Facebook page. Follow us and feel free to share to your friends and contacts. Let us begin the program with a short invocation. Heavenly Father, we praise and glorify your name as we all gather here in the harbor of your safety. We come to you in gratitude for bestowing us this opportunity to bring everyone together in this event. Shower your blessings on this community gathered here in your name. May this be a meaningful gathering for all of us here, and may you continue to guide us in the days ahead to make this the most fruitful year for everyone. Lead us in all the work that we do, so that we may all reap the benefits of our collective wisdom and experience. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Let us now take a moment for the Philippine National Anthem.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, helas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa mandulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng bangaw, ay hinatang tulad
Okay, now to open today's program, please welcome the Chairman of SharePHIL and President and CEO of Maynilad Water Services, Mr. Ramoncito Fernandez.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Good afternoon. SharePHIL is one with our countrymen in its quest for an early economic recovery. COVID is not only responsible for the 17,000 deaths and a million COVID cases, but also for 4.2 million unemployed and approximately 7.9 million underemployed, as well as about 90,000 business closures. COVID has also exposed cracks in our country's health system. Our health workers are exhausted, while our economic frontliners are debilitated. GDP growth forecast has been lowered from the original 7 to 8% to now 5.6%. The recent surge of cases and deaths begs the following questions. Is this due to the new variants? Were there violations in the implementation of quarantine procedures in our OFW repatriation? Is it because we brought our guards down after the temporary flattening of the curves? Is it because of the early reopening of the economy? Are we gaining momentum in our vaccination program? We thank government for the early passage of Bayanihan 1 and 2, Create and Fists laws as part of the country's economic recovery package. We also look forward to the eventual passage of the Guide Bill or Government Financial Institutions Unified Initiatives to Distressed Enterprises. Together with Guide, we also look forward to the amendments to the Foreign Investment Act, the Public Service Act, the Trade Liberalization Act, and the Capital Market Development Act. SharePHIL remains steadfast in support of government in all the sectors in reshaping our country's economic recovery. New norms and consumer behaviors are being reshaped as the economy adjusts. As our country recovers from this pandemic, we have seen how our telecommunications industry have worked hard to adjust to the increased demands for connectivity. We have seen its vital role in the work from home, study from home environments, as well as the enabling adjustments to enterprises, including BPOs, as well as the financial services sector. In short, telcos have been crucial in the access to timely and relevant information. Improved connectivity has enabled the rapid growth of digitalization. We have seen how the shift from in-person to online transaction has also accelerated the development of the fulfillment supply chain industry. Clearly, movements of money and goods have been facilitated, thereby bolstering consumer spending. We have also seen how social media has helped thousands of micro entrepreneurs in opening and operating new businesses. We have also witnessed how displaced restaurant and or factory workers transformed to be Grab, Lalamove, Lazada, or Shopee delivery personnel. In a way, one can say that this is one of the clear contribution of the telecommunications industry to inclusive economic recovery. We are very happy to share with you, with everyone, our first leg of our annual summit with the theme Reshaping the Economy through Inclusive Business. Today's summit, From Bricks to Clicks, Thriving in a Digital World, is SharePHIL's 10th since we started in 2014. Consistent with our strategic pillars to educate, equip, empower, and engage. I would like to thank our distinguished speakers and panelists for sharing their knowledge and expertise. I also would like to thank our generous sponsors and media partners for their support. Thank you too to our SharePHIL trustees and secretariat for their unselfish work and dedication. I hope you all enjoy the summit. Ingat po kayo lagi. Maraming salamat po. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mon. And now for our first keynote speaker, we have Mr. Alfredo Panlilio, President and CEO of Smart Corporations and Chief Revenue Officer of the PLDT Group. He will discuss network services as the backbone of the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Mr. Panlilio.
Hi, good afternoon. Chairman Mon, nice seeing you. And also to President Jimmy of SharePHIL, and I think it's your birthday, so happy birthday. Good afternoon to all. I hope everybody is keeping safe and well. I'm here to talk about network services at the backbone of the economy. You know, there was a time in the not too distant past when network and digital services were only for the tech savvy and are secondary options for those willing to understand new technology. I saw a funny video once of a millennial trying to operate a rotary phone. The two-way radio was the biggest hit in my younger years. Beepers, if you can still recall, when we had to relay our messages to a stranger over the phone. And those ice shavers and banana phones that were present at that time. Quite a journey it has been, really. But as our economy digitizes, many network services have become essential to the functioning of everyday life, both for work and home. We are starting to go beyond telco. Fast forward to today, internet connection delivered to and from mobile-enabled devices accounts for half of our website traffic. This means its pace of growth is also a good measure of how quickly digitization is occurring. It is estimated that mobile data usage in 2025 will be almost 6 times higher than the level seen in 2018, driven by smartphone adoption and affordable high-speed network services. We are traveling less frequently, if at all, spending more time at home, avoiding physical contact, and rethinking the way that we consume goods and services. COVID-19 has not so much changed the way we live as it upended it. An IBM research shows that in the space of 12 months, the pandemic has brought forward the transition from physical shopping to e-commerce by an estimated 5 years. In the face of massive job losses in lower income sectors due to the shutdown of retail services and establishments, e-commerce platforms serve as a lifeline for minimum wage earners and small business owners. You go into Lamas to the last mall online, and you are transported to a real mall, but in cyberspace. More than the bigger establishments' digital adoption, our network services and solutions allow small players to go into online retailing and thrive in the new normal. Banking has always adopted digitally. Payment and financial processing can be done in a click of a finger, something that GCash has upheld very well. Kudos to Ernest and his team. But of course, we also have our own Paymaya. The workplace has been similarly transformed. Analysts expect that in 2022, as much as 30% of the workforce will continue to work from home multiple days a week. Meanwhile, as people stayed home for entertainment, broadband usage across the country rose exponentially. In the face of unprecedented demand through lockdown, Netflix, HBO Go, Facebook, YouTube, and Google suddenly had to scale up and deliver their services to subscribers that magnified in number almost overnight. These changes drove us to rethink and deliver telco in the context of consumption through enablement of passions and the utility on the internet, with genuine prioritization in arming the Filipino people with tools and products to survive and thrive in this new normal. The increased usage of data driven by work and study from home during the pandemic speaks of telco as a utility, while the increased use of data on a personal consumption level, such as video streaming, online stories, e-games, and etc., responding to the consumer's needs to be entertained and care for their overall well-being, describes telco as an enabler of people's passion and purpose, both roles being equally important. Transitioning to the new digital reality requires internet speeds to increase, coverage to expand, and reliability to improve. Further investments in physical infrastructure such as 5G networks, subsea cables, telco networks, and towers secures the future for our country in this increasingly digital world. We are aggressively rolling out our smart 5G coverage and now have around 2,600 5G sites nationwide, from 400 at the start of the year. We're spending massively to roll out to over 4,000 sites by the end of 2021. This means more people will enjoy 5G coverage. Our investment in fiber is also crucial and continuous to support our increasingly connected societies. This is broadly split into the fiber connecting our homes with high-speed internet and the enterprise point-to-point fiber network servicing the growing data demands of government and enterprise clients. We have ramped up our fiber installation and repair capabilities despite the restrictions brought about by the pandemic. We covered 48% of the country at the start of the year and are gunning to expand to 66% by year end. Corporate technology strategies are also changing as the need for scalable and secure data storage has increased. We now have workloads that call for hyperscale data centers. Therefore, we are focusing all our efforts in building capacities to bring hyperscalers into the country. With the ecosystem that we are building, the localization of content combined with the telco infrastructure of PLDT and the other telcos in our Vitro data center, we enable enterprises to have seamless hybrid work arrangements as well as better end user experience. Ultimately, our vision is to help make the Philippines a strategic hyperscaler hub in the region. Between this year and the next few years, we're launching 4 new international cable systems, where 3 of them are under the ownership of PLDT. These new cable systems, plus the existing 19 sovereign cables in the Philippines, 14 of which are part of PLDT's investments, will highlight the Philippines' potential in the hyperscalers roadmap, considering the involvement of Facebook, AWS, and Google in the new cable systems in the Philippines. Over time, we expect to see data centers become more diverse. This includes edge data centers, which are small facilities located as close as possible to the community they serve, as well as sustainable data centers, which use electricity derived from renewable resources. The fact that network services are a crucial component in our country's COVID-19 response is something that we take to heart. Working with our government to deliver fast and reliable connectivity that is easily accessible where it is needed, such as in COVID isolation facilities, hospitals, health centers, LGUs, etc., is top priority for us at PLDT and SMART. Being an instigator of goodwill and positive actions in these dire times is another way telco inspires progress that comes from personal revolutions. Simple actions that make a powerful impact. These community pantries that prove how the Bayanihan spirit never dies is a good awakening within us, encouraging and enabling everyone with the power to make a difference. COVID is still upon us. Vaccines up to this point are still a variable rather than a viable solution. For PLDT and SMART, In telco in general, two words stand out: service and connection. We should develop a greater sense of corporate social responsibility and ensure that while we pursue economic profits, we bring about social and environmental benefits as well. Our commitment in keeping everyone connected is key. Ensuring a high quality of service is of primary importance. The current situation has driven a unique level of cooperation between the different sectors of our society. We must sustain these bridged relationships and forge partnerships with the goal of economic recovery and a shared vision of the future. With the pace at which we are transitioning to an even more digital world, further accelerated by the impacts of COVID-19, network services and technology have proven their value and role in our economic recovery and overall nation building. Connectivity being a primary necessity puts telco in a good position to help our country get back on its feet. PLDT and Smart, being the only integrated telco in the Philippines, gives us the upper hand, with entailing responsibilities to offer a range of products and services to our countrymen today in post-COVID. We will never stop evolving, as our vision for the future is one where all Filipinos are digitally empowered. It has been the same principle behind why PLDT started investing on telephone lines 93 years ago, to empower our economic future for everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Al, for that very inspiring talk. Many things for us to look forward to from PLDT and Smart. And now for our next speaker to share with us his view on customer-centric banking. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Mr. Hans Sikat, Country Head of ING Philippines.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. First, I'd like to say thank you to SharePHIL, Chair Mon Fernandez, President Jimmy Ismael, and the board for having me. I'm happy to be here with the other distinguished presenters and panelists who are all part of our digital ecosystem. I also noticed something, and that I'm sandwiched between my good friends Al and Ernest. So I want to mention to each one that both on a personal and institutional basis, I use your product. So I guess I'm good to be the barrier between the two of you. Now, onwards to our topics today. If I can move to the next slide. There are some basic themes that interlock the banking system and inclusive recovery. And these are the 4 items mentioned here in this topic overview. I'm just going to breeze through them in the next 9 minutes or so to give everyone a high-level view. And let me make a few comments on these points. If I move to the next slide. So on helping inclusive growth. First, the financial system, if you move to the next slide, is the lubricant for the real economy. And there is a need to have the piping and interconnectivity working as a precondition to anything. And I think Al so eloquently talked about this earlier. The banks and financial system are responsible for providing liquidity and the related financial services that are important to end users. Now, the digital retail propositions have overcome geographic barriers and perhaps even social strata. And the proof points are what the telecom companies have continued to accomplish via their mobile propositions for years now. In addition, the various front-end apps in different industries, as evidenced by our presenters today, also demonstrate this. Maybe thirdly, the institutional users do benefit from faster turnaround times, security of data, and improved transparency. So credit analyses, trading facilities, customer information systems are good examples. And for example, systems talking to one another within an institution and sharing the same data lake improves both the customer experience as well as the regulatory reporting accuracy. Finally, I'll say that the average costs can decrease over time with more digitalization of the ecosystem. Why is this important? This helps benefit users as the cost to deliver services come down in terms of real prices. And likewise, the sustainability of the various providers and their ability to continue providing services is important in order to grow the user base and make it more inclusive. Now, I've talked about some of the use cases, if I go to the next slides, which include retail use. Yeah, next slide, please. And there are a number of examples which include our full digital retail bank. In our case, we hope we've been disrupting the local banking system, for example, with our app to save and pay. And on the next slide, you'll see that we've already launched our loan module, which is on soft launch and will be fully live before the second half of this year. Say the next slide, please. If I can move on to the next slide as well. When we talk about wholesale applications, now many people don't really think of this, I guess, segment, but it's also perhaps as important. If I move to the next slide. Our Think Forward strategy is actually based on our in-house innovation, partnered with our global IT team, and some fintech partnerships. We've done development in-house and have also partnered with various fintech firms over the last few years. Currently, we're invested in about 30 firms around the world, part of our 300 million euro portfolio. And you'll see on this slide that as a result of this work and the various projects, we've launched in various European geographies a number of these applications. And these are various payment apps, aggregators, open banking, robotics advisors, including now blockchain applications and distribution insight for loan syndications. The next slide as well adds in additional applications. And these are part of our regulatory processes, improvements for trading processes and trading efficiencies, and also other specific examples of our distributed ledger technology or blockchain transactions, which we've done in the trade finance sector. So what else have we been doing in terms of the wholesale side? Move to the next slide. ING and UNICEF actually have a global partnership, but this has a local Philippine project and initiative as well. And last year, in the midst of a pandemic, we actually ran some sort of contest wherein we ended up giving equity grants to 5 firms last year. And the objective was really quite simple. And that was and is to create market-based fintech solutions to close service gaps, reduce financial barriers, and help young people out of poverty. If we turn to the next slide, you're going to see the 5 examples that we've actually given some funding to. Let me just rattle off what they do. So Agraba helps farmers and fisher folk regarding their access to markets and financing. Beam and Go is a payment and digital marketplace for migrant workers. InvestEd is a coaching platform for low-income students. Reach 52 provides affordable microinsurance, healthcare, primarily for women in rural communities. And Saffron, an AI-powered tool, perhaps aptly named Nanay or NAN.ai, which helps rural families with affordable and accessible insurance. But even as we talk about inclusive recovery, I'd like to mention to this audience that there are challenges and issues. So if we go to the next slide, here we just talk about what is regulatory related. Now, regulations drive requirements, but for example, in the case of the Banco Central, also encourage digitalizations. But there are many issues here, from anti-money laundering items, licensing, use cases, capitalization requirements, interagency and cross-border regulations. So a question is increasing regulation a problem, a challenge, or a catalyst? And I guess there are all of these plus more. For example, questions of what type of firm should fall into these oversight functions when they're delivering part of a solution, or the same type of solutions to end users, but are classified as different businesses. That's a question mark. As a bank, I always wonder, am I competing with insurance firms, telecom companies, fintech firms, logistics centers, retail distributors, mobility providers, or many others. So these have many strategic implications for the firm, but also has implications for various regulators. On the next slide, I also summarize that the digitalization transformation is a full-time, multi-year project, which requires, full-time stakeholder buy-in. And really, for those firms which haven't looked at this before, a major cultural shift. As we talk about open banking, we'll also know that we'll be dealing with a whole host of various issues, different strategies of different firms, financial institutions. You have the weakest link issue, and of course, intellectual property and liability issues come to mind. So maybe in conclusion and in closing, I'll just say that the digitalized banking sector has various institutional and retail applications, which should increase inclusivity and participation in our economy. But there are many complicated issues around the ecosystem, and this will require both time, stakeholder buy-in, support, and the desire of all of us to work on moving this ecosystem forward. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Hans. ING has been a trailblazer in the digital banking space, and now we see platforms expanding financial services that are accessible for every Filipino. Just like with our next speaker, who will talk about #Finance for All, democratizing access to investments. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the President and CEO of Globe Telecom, Mr. Ernest Koo.
Hey, good afternoon to everybody, and thanks again to SharePHIL for the opportunity to share some of the progress we're making in bringing finance for all to the Philippines. No? So thanks to President Jimmy for inviting me, and I'm gonna say hi to the Chairman Mon. Haven't seen you in a while, but great to see you here. And as with the two speakers, it's fantastic to be here with my colleague in industry, Al Panlilio, and also now colleague in industry, Hans Sikat, right? We're actually in both telco and finance at the moment. So wonderful to have the chance to share with the public the progress that GCash has made in driving financial inclusion. First slide, please. You know, according to the BSP, the country is still one of these very heavily unbanked countries in the world. I actually think we are more underbanked than unbanked. You know, a lot of the people who have bank accounts simply use them for payroll. Money goes in and money goes out. They really have no clue as to what services are available, and also probably are barred financially from using those particular services. The Philippines ranks #4 in terms of the highest percentage of unbanked in the world. And, you know, like I said, the structure of the investments being offered make it very difficult for Filipinos to access these investments. No? Next slide, please. And so it's a main reason that ownership of investments remain low, with about only 25% of the adult population having even tried investing. You know, less than 1.1 million Filipinos are stock market account holders, because again, the documentary requirements, the access to stockbrokers, you know, it's still a very much a brick and mortar world. We do have some online brokers now that are starting to come to market, but again, scalability of their particular platforms have sometimes become an issue and a barrier to investing. And of course, economically, there's the issue of work stability when it comes to the Filipino investor, and of course, the high minimum. And I think one of the most difficult barriers to overcome is the barrier of the lack of awareness and education in terms of investment options. You know, but we're glad to say on the next slide that the opportunities are indeed arising in terms of getting Filipinos into investments today, as well as into the mobile side of finance. Filipinos are highly mobile. Between us and my good friend Al's company, there's about 153 million mobile connections and 74 million internet users. And majority, if not 100%, nearly 100% of these individuals access the internet in one way or another through their smartphones. I think the progress of GCash over the last year or two has also is testimony to the fact that Filipinos are now gaining trust in mobile financial services. With 42.1% of the internet users in the country now accessing a mobile and financial services through their mobiles. And it's tracking higher year on year. It's evidence given how we've really progressed through the pandemic, and how the product has really gone mainstream. We've also been seeing that stock market investors are getting younger. The young folks are now getting more interested, as majority of the interest is in technology issues, technology stocks like Apple, Amazon, the FANG type of companies who attract a lot of attention, and people if this age group actually use as part of their daily lives, right? So this has given us a chance to maximize the trust of these investors, and our job is to provide them with options to access these investments in a very affordable and convenient way. GCash has been truly the extension of the Filipino digital life, right? Especially during the pandemic. We were very fortunate that the product, which actually started before my career at Globe. I think it was founded in 2004. Without the smartphone, without 4G data, I think the experience will never be optimal. When I found the product at Globe, I thought it was truly a product way ahead of its time. And I think we'll have to be thankful to both Globe and PLDT for the extensive investments that have been done in connectivity in this country that drive mobile adoption. That mobile adoption in turn has given rise to smartphone penetration and smartphone concentration in the country, and has really led to enabling an app like GCash to flourish. The other good thing for GCash is that it's become ubiquitous with the needs that have arisen during the pandemic, and I'm just happy that the team was ready with the various use cases when the pandemic erupted and people adopted GCash hand over fist. And as a result, it's become the top financial app in the country today. GCash, as we said, I think the moderator introduced the hashtag Finance for All. That is truly the vision and the purpose that we have given ourselves to achieve. Finance for All means access to financial services, access to loans, access to payment. But more importantly, one of our ambitions is to give each Filipino a financial identity. The more they use GCash, the more they enhance their G-score or credit score. As we all know, in the Philippines, there is not a, national credit score of any sort. And I think we have the opportunity to give that to the Filipino public just by simply using GCash and entrusting us with the different habits that they have on finance. And we can evaluate that and form a financial profile for you. And this score could open up bigger loans and investment opportunities in the future for our customers. So to date, GCash has grown to over 38 million users. I think we crossed 40 million a few months back. And the growth has been unprecedented and continues to be the same in 2021. The cashless solutions have made it possible to transact with the limitations of the pandemic, and it has spawned many other users. We've got 1 million merchants now and social sellers. We've kept a lot of these small home entrepreneurs, home businesses that sell on Viber, that sell on limited degree on FB, even on the e-commerce marketplaces alive, because they can accept payments via GCash in a digital and cashless method. From GCash to bank transfers to bills payment, we can do all of this in GCash, and we now have amassed over 7 million daily transactions, right? So that's quite a bit in terms of what flows through the platform today. I believe that the number that we are targeting for in gross transaction value is over 2 trillion this year. We crossed 1 trillion in 2020, and we hope that the value keeps going up, because that means people are really transacting over our platform. I have to say too that one of our things that we're proud of is that we've even surpassed active users of international apps, global apps like Spotify and Viber, and I think we've also surpassed Instagram. And we are number 3 in terms of commerce apps in the country, behind only the 2 leading shopping platforms, Lazada and Shopee. But gaining ground steadily, and hopefully one day we will reach the top of the heap as people patronize the service more and more. In the last few years, we've also worked to expand our app to provide more and secure options for our customers. GSave is a savings account in partnership with CIMB, and now has over 3 million active accounts and growing. We've sold 250,000 insurance policies through our platform GInsure, and a partnership with a startup from Singapore called Singlife. Our product we started with was a COVID-19 and dengue coverage. It's 140,000 pesos of coverage for 300 pesos per year. We've recently launched another one, which is income coverage. In case you lose your job, we will have income protection for you as well for a very, very modest premium. G Credit has been something in existence for a while, and it is the basis for our G score. It's our own credit line, which has extended over 12 billion pesos worth of credit to about 1 million active users. And our newest feature, I think, which is the highlight of this particular talk, is G Invest, which now has 1 million users with an average of about 15 million flowing into the platform on a daily basis. So we're very pleased with the take-up. That allows really the concept of finance for all to happen. Next slide, please. This particular G Invest platform or section of the app allows for simplified access. Any verified GCash user can start their investments through GCash, and investments for as low as 50 pesos for a local fund, a mutual fund, and 1,000 pesos for international funds. And we have about 4 funds right now in partnership with Atram, one of the foremost fund managers in the Philippines. And this provides access to our users to top-tier companies like, Globe, PLDT, Ayala, the SM Group, URC, and global companies, like I said, the tech giants like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Samsung, and many, many more. This is a purview that was not really available for most of the public in the past, because, like I said, the barriers that exist of opening an account with a stockbroker, or the intimidation that occurs when you walk into a private bank or investment bank to try and put up an investment account. So in just a couple of months, since we launched the local international fund options, we've seen tremendous growth. Interestingly enough, the most popular fund is the tech fund, the international tech fund, where people, I guess it's something that's not available in the market in the past. And now, I think suddenly with access, Filipinos are joining in and investing in that particular segment. So again, this shows the incredible desire for financial preparedness by the average Filipino, a need that's partly been unmet until the advent of G Invest. It shows that Filipinos are ready to invest and they just are looking for ways to get started. So we've been working very hard as well with partners like Rex Mendoza, Bo Sanchez, Chinkitan, and other young people to talk about investments in YouTube and even platforms like TikTok, hopefully in Kumu as well very soon, to be able to get the word out that investments are a key part of life, a key part of your savings, and a key part of your future. And so, getting Filipinos to invest, I think, is going to be something we'll keep pushing in the long run. Next slide, please. So it's really up to us, fintech platforms, right, to make it easy for people to invest, to be the trusted provider of investment opportunities, right? We take on that responsibility to minimize the barriers to investing and make financial security available for all. So providing finance for all, hopefully, will not only help our customers become more secure in the future, but it will also greatly help the company's economic recovery. I think with the advent of the vaccines, and the economy opening up, we do believe that digital payments, digital banking, financial services by mobile are going to become a norm in the Philippines and a standard practice for most consumers. So thank you very much. I hope you will all stay safe and may you have a great day ahead. Thanks again for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Ernest. GCash and GInvest have certainly made inroads in addressing unbanked Filipinos and making investments accessible and frictionless for everyone. And now we welcome on screen our esteemed panel, who likewise are collectively working towards providing digital solutions for Filipinos to access goods and services right at their fingertips. We have here today Mr. Ray Alimurong, CEO of Lazada Philippines, helping empower Filipino business to go and grow online. Next is Mr. Paulo Azola, who is the Chief Operating Officer of PayMaya. PayMaya is the only end-to-end digital payments ecosystem enabler in the Philippines with platforms and services that cut across consumers, merchants, communities, and government. As the largest non-bank payment processor, most pervasive remittance network, and inclusive wallet provider, its mission is to empower every Filipino consumer and enterprise to participate and thrive in the new digital economy. We also have with us Ms. Martha Sazon, President and CEO of Mint, which operates GCash. So GCash is the hashtag #1 finance app in the Philippines with over 38 million users nationwide. It aims to improve the everyday lives of Filipinos by giving access to digital payments and helping provide financial freedom to all. Rounding out our panel is Ms. Grace Vera Cruz, country head of Grab Philippines. Grace is currently leading Grab for Good, Grab's social impact agency of leveraging technology and innovation to contribute to the Philippines' longer-term socio-economic recovery and development. And we welcome back on stage, on our virtual stage, our keynote speakers, Mr. Al Pandillo, Mr. Hans Sikat, and Mr. Ernest Koo. And moderating today's discussion is our trustee, one of our trustees of SharePHIL, and chairperson of and CEO of PNA Grant Thornton. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all put our hands together to all of them and to our moderator, Ms. Marivic Espano. Marivic, over to you.
Thank you, Mai. Good afternoon to all our participants who are with us today, whether you are watching in Zoom, YouTube, or Facebook. And a warm welcome also to everyone in our panel. I'm looking forward to a very interesting discussion. You know, they say that the biggest challenge for the wide adoption of technology is for the uninitiated to try them. And clearly, because of the pandemic that we are experiencing, this barrier has significantly been brought down. I must confess that among the products that our guests have here are offering before the pandemic, I was only using ING. But because of the pandemic, yes, I must confess, I've been buying things from Lazada. I've been having goods delivered to my house and paying them through GCash. Of course, getting our Grab Delivery Express to get them to our place. And definitely PayMaya is also in the list. So if it were not because of the pandemic, I would not have known you guys. I would not have known your services. So thank you for this current crisis. Indeed, for any crisis, there is an opportunity. And this particular one has given us the impetus to increase the use of technology and reshape businesses and the way we do things. With technology, we are now bringing to our homes, our work, and doing things, the usual things that we do through our computers. So from bricks to clicks. Now, before we dive into our panel discussion, there were a couple of interesting points in the presentation of Al and Ernest that are relevant to our discussion on digital transformation. And I'd like to get them to expound on these points because we might miss them later. No? And the point is that data and internet connectivity are needed to fuel digital transformation, right? So if we needed oil to run machines, we need data and internet to run these digital platforms and reach the consumer base that we want to grow. So a question to all. There is no doubt that there is a spike in the user of internet services. What were the particular challenges encountered by PLDT in scaling up to meet this sudden demand? What steps did you do to help your customers?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And again, hello to everybody. And I'm sure Ernest will have the same answers. Now, I think initially we did see the spike, but I think after all the investments we've done in the network for this many years, no, I think the network was quite ready during the spike. The only difference that happened then was where the volume of data usage was coming from, because as you know, a lot of it is in the business districts. But during the lockdown, it suddenly transferred to the residential area of the country, and we had to refarm and we had to sort of make sure that the capacities in those areas became better, so that experience of the customers were good. No, so but that refarming didn't take too long. It was quite easy to do that, but it's really just trying to reallocate resources to certain areas where the volume was coming from. No, but we sort of course, no, I mean, no one anticipates the pandemic. No one anticipated that kind of lockdown, but I think we were quite agile in adapting to that surge, and we're able to make sure the customer experience remained to be very high.
Thank you, Al. Ernest, would you like to add anything? Were there projects in the pipeline, for instance, that had to be accelerated, or new systems, tools that had to be built from scratch?
I think what Alan mentioned was exactly right. We operated under a different set of very restrictive conditions. Now, that being said, there were some developments as well that helped the industry. We were very fortunate to be given an audience by the president. Where he even threatened yours truly hanging him from an non-existent tower. But it allowed us to actually build and build quickly. I'm sure PLDT and Globe is the same. But we were able to catch up on the delays that we had in 2020 that enabled us to build even more than what we did in 2019. For Globe in particular, there was a shift in strategy in building out fiber. The fiber was the domain of PLDT and our other competitor Converge. And we were a big player in the wireless space, wireless internet to the home. But given the shift in habits of the Filipino consumer, whereby the home becomes a school and becomes an office, multiple offices at times, and multiple classrooms, as well as an entertainment hub, we've had to shift and accelerate a lot of the fiber builds that we had to do. We actually shifted a lot of budgets to fiber, and continue to build that out robustly, because the need is indeed there. And it's an area which I'm sure I would agree that we compete quite aggressively these days on reaching as many and as quickly as we can. So that's been the major shift.
If I may add to that, I'd like to thank Ernest for that risk he did, in making sure that we're able to push government to help us. At the end of the day, it's the permitting, it's really working on the ground that's most difficult. It's not the plans of both Globe and PLDT are lacking. It's really more the execution part of it, no. But I guess for us also, I mean, just to expound on what changed for us is really a year ago. I guess about a year ago, we made a bold decision on really expanding on 5G. I think we've been, our nationwide coverage in fiber has been very extensive. I think we'll cross 500,000 kilometers by the end of the year. But really, our thrust was to really shift over to our investments also on 5G. So as I mentioned in my talk earlier, we have exceeded about 2,600 towers already in 5G, because I think that's where it's going to go. I mean, you talk about all these solutions and these passion points and this fintech. and it runs on engines, right? And the engine here is really either your mobile phone or your device at home that's being driven by fiber. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think our role in the industry, both Ernest and I, is to make sure the connectivity remains to be very, very strong.
Thank you. Ali mentioned that there was a shift from office work to home use of internet. And I know that in the past, people hesitate to get a home connection because of the perceived high cost of services. And prior to the pandemic, most of the time, people would either be in the office where they would be using their office internet or their mobile phones. So with this shift in customer demand, how did you address the perception of high cost of services for their new products that were introduced by Globe or PLDT? So
Well,
maybe Al
actually,
first.
in terms of high cost, I'm not sure that's an accurate statement. I think it's very competitive out there in terms of pricing. No price war, but really, very competitive products in the market. In fact, I think gone are the days that you're gonna be at work, right? That environment where everybody just works in the offices. I think the new normal now is you will still have some form of work from home. I think for the next, I mean, it will be now the behavior of offices. In fact, it changes the way you think about office space. How much office space do you need now? Because people, when I have my, obviously when you're virtual, you talk to more people as often as you can because you can't meet with them physically. And the feedback I'm getting, and I'm sure everybody in the room is getting the same thing, they're even more productive working virtually, longer hours, and really it is a new norm for working. No? So I'm not sure whether it's really a price issue. I think, in fact, today, the impact of the fixed broadband at home is affecting actual mobility usage because now you have 5-6 people sharing Wi-Fi spot at home. Used to be when of course there was no laptop, mobility was there. Everybody was using their mobile phone, but now everybody is stuck in their homes and they share a pipe in the home, no, and that's gonna be the norm. And in fact, the packages that we used to have a lot of 10 Mbps, and that used to be very fast already. But now I think today, if there are 5 people in the house, I think you need at least 25, if not 50 Mbps running in the household. So in fact, they're upgrading their services to higher Mbps packages because it addresses education, work, entertainment, business. They offer their, they bake ubi pandesal and they sell it online, and so on and so forth. And of course, they pay through GCash or Pay Maya or ING or whatever. And by the way, Hans, I am an ING customer, so I applied online. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. You mentioned about speed. There is actually a question in the chat box about speed, and I'd like to ask Ernest to respond to it. Allow me to read it. For many years now, the speed of our internet as a country has been criticized as being one of the lowest in the region. What do telcos need to speed things up and be at par with our neighbors? What is the price for catching up? And are you ready to put up the investment? What is the realistic timetable to catch up?
Maybe I'll take it on, and maybe Al can chime in. I think this is a belief that we will never shed, that we are the lowest in the region. Even when many agencies have already stated we're right in the middle of the pack now, and probably at par with some of our countries, certainly when it comes to the mobile services. What we needed to do is what we're doing. We're rolling out, and we're rolling out very, very fast. In the past, it really is no way we can roll out services when you need 30 permits before you can launch something. And again, that was very critical in allowing us telcos to invest. The investment level as well has been accelerated. I think both PLDT and Globe are well above the 40% mark in terms of capex to revenue ratio. A capex to revenue ratio that I'm sure not any one of these companies in the Philippines or the PSE can match. no one puts back that much of your revenue into your network. This is every year, no? This is not one time, and it's accelerating. And PLDT, I think, is saying it's 90 billion this year, and Globe is at 70 billion. Right? And so that I think, if you look at and compare with global standard, that is very, very high. Right? The timetable to reach it, I guess I really don't know, but it's a moving target, right? Because as we grow and grow our speeds, the speeds are also increasing globally, right? And when you say global, these are sometimes with countries that assist, right, the telcos in reaching the far ends of their regions. No? If you are reading the press or seen the press, President Biden announced an $800 million grant to telcos to reach far-reaching areas of the US that have no broadband today. Australia has their national broadband program that launches backhaul for wide swaths of land that are not able or have no business case for telcos. I think that's what's going to take, right? It's going to be a private-public partnership with government, because there are still many areas Al and I cannot build submarine cables to, for instance, because there just simply is no business case. Right, there is a country of islands, country of rivers, a country of mountains, and that topography prevents a lot of cost-effective rollouts. Right, you know, we are now in the process of sharing towers, and I think that's going to be good, because that will share share the cost and the burden of the towers. We share and buy fiber from some builders that are out there already. Very similar to what we do with submarine cables, and so it'll just take time, right, over the years.
Thank you, Ernest.
I'd like to echo that. I think it's two things. No, one is really investment. CapEx has been very high. The past 5 years for us, it's at least 500 billion pesos of CapEx. We spent about, despite the pandemic last year, we spent about 71 billion last year. And Ernest is right. I mean, he's been reading our reports. Obviously, it's 90 billion our target this year, and it's going to continue. No, and in terms of ranking, Ookla, who is a third party who takes a look at all these speeds. I think we are, Ernest is correct, we're a bit of the pack if you compare it in terms of global, but in ASEAN the same thing. But we're benchmarking ourselves against Vietnam and Thailand, for example, in terms of download speeds both on mobile and fixed. But it's all private sector spending here, and I think that's the other point that Ernest is driving. A lot of these other countries that we are being compared to, a lot of it is coming from government funding. Vietnam, obviously, from government. Singapore, from government, of course, and Thailand. No? So it's really private sector money that's pushing it. But really, our aspiration is to deliver the best service for Filipinos, equivalent to at least our regional partners. But it's a lot of money. I mean, I'm sure, Ernest, you go through this when we go to our analyst reports. They ask you, why is your envelope, your EBITDA envelope, your capex is so high, and it is really beyond 14%. So it's not sustainable. But at the end of the day, we have the responsibility to bring the service that's better for the country. But so it's a balance that we need to achieve here.
Thank you, Al and Ernest, on those notes. Now, really, connectivity is very critical if we are to really drive the digital transformation of the country. And as the COVID positive cases remain at a high level, most of us are resigned to the fact that this situation would probably be for a longer period of time, and we're looking for and discovering new ways of doing things under this new environment. Now, we'd like to understand how the different platforms of our guests today are continuing to support businesses, especially the small and mid-sized enterprises, and how they are providing job opportunities. For a start, I'd like to invite our panel to share with us their initial thoughts on the theme of this summit, including their any reactions they may have on the earlier presentations. Now, allow me to first call Ray of Lazada. Ray?
Hi, Margaret. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank SharePHIL for hosting this online summit. And thank you to Mon, Al, Hans, and Ernest for your valuable insights. My reactions now, let me give some context first. So Lazada has invested in the growth of digital economy, as all of your companies have. And since 2012, when e-commerce was at its infancy, we had been investing in the growth of the internet economy. And today there's 100,000 MSMEs doing business on our platform, providing livelihood. Now, Marvin, your question was, how are we providing jobs? And actually, these 100,000 SMEs are giving jobs and livelihood to thousands of employees of the sellers, as well as adjacent industries, BPO, logistics, payments, marketing services, as well as, of course, providing services to millions of buyers every month. But I would say our common objective with your companies, ING, PLDT Smart, and Globe, is that we are one with you in ensuring that more businesses are able to participate and thrive in the digital economy. We truly believe that the internet is the great equalizer, democratizing opportunities for everyone, especially MSMEs. And today, MSMEs can have access to markets and resources previously available only to big business. And I really agree with the speakers that we need to continue to improve our infrastructure for connectivity, finance, so payments, loans, investments, as well as logistics, which we didn't really touch on, in order to support an enabling environment for the digital economy to continue growing at a much faster pace. And for connectivity, we definitely applaud the efforts of Smart and Globe continuing to push the frontier in making internet access more affordable and accessible to more Filipinos. I agree with you, Ernest, that is a myth, that Philippines is the slowest. It's also like online scams, as though they happen to everyone. Actually, they're a small percentage. It's the myth that goes with your myth. I guess for our efforts in connectivity, we have a mobile app that is lean in terms of file size and bandwidth requirements. And then on digital payments, we applaud the efforts of GCash, PayMaya, and ING leading the way towards digital payments. Although I must say that in addition to financial inclusion, I think there is a need for the industry as well to improve user experience. Today, we have so many bank account holders on Lazada who insist on using COD because they have difficulty using their bank, or because they're holding cash to begin with. And I really believe that digital payments lowers the cost of e-commerce transactions. And just to give you one number, a non-COD order, a COD order will fail 15 times more than a non-COD order because people don't have their cash on hand. And that reverse logistics cost goes back in the form of higher delivery rates. For our efforts at Lazada, it's wallet, direct linking to banks and e-wallets, and enabling credit debit cards. But definitely, there also remains the need to enhance consumer trust on digital payments by strengthening KYC on the receiver, because that would deter the scam and the fraud. So I think there are efforts happening here. And the last point I want to make is that we truly believe at Lazada, public and private partnerships form the cornerstone to grow the digital economy, and we advocate a collaborative approach on policy development that ensures that all the key stakeholders are involved. So thank you, Mary.
Good points, Ray. I like what you said about building consumer trust. I have to admit, on my first order in Lazada, I paid COD because I wasn't used to the system, right? But when I saw that it was working, then I was more willing to pay using GCash or PayMaya.
So you were the one driving our 80% COD share.
Yes,
no, everyone.
Yes. And I also agree with what you said about creating income opportunities. I saw in Lazada I became a plantita during the pandemic, and I was buying plants from very low income families. And I really appreciated the fact that they had a platform that they can sell their products and earn income. Now moving on to Paulo, PayMaya. Your thoughts, please, on the summit and reaction to earlier discussions so far.
Yes, well, thank you for having me, and magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Thank you, Al, Hans, and Ernest for laying down the remarkable progress that our industries have achieved so far in such a difficult time. It really takes a village to make digital finance for all possible, and we are very excited with the blue ocean of possibilities and how digital financial services can make lives better for all Filipinos. We've seen that inclusion has different facets. Everyone usually talks about the inclusion of getting an e-wallet, but it's more than just getting an e-wallet. So we try and provide productive capital and financial services to all, not just by giving consumers a financial account, but also by enabling the other side of the equation, which is businesses. And that's something that Ray touched on earlier. And enabling businesses to be cashless and digital. And this coming Friday, the BSP, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, is launching the national QR standard, QRPH, for merchant payments. And we are very proud to be an integral part of QRPH. And of course, the other banks, including ING and non-banks, including GCash, will participate in that also. Now, also, as important, we should always not forget that there are millions of unserved and underserved Filipinos who are yet to have access to the digital world. And for us, it's so simple to wake up in the morning and be digital. But there's still a lot of people out there who are still behind. So while we are more than excited for the rapid digital transformation across all industries, there's a danger that this could exacerbate both the digital and the financial divide. And this is why we must also bring digital to Filipinos without bank accounts, without always on mobile data, and without being connected at all times. And sari-sari stores, I really believe, and barangay stores can also be the channel to make that possible. So where there isn't a data connection, or where there isn't a smartphone, or perhaps where there isn't the comfort of making a transaction on a mobile phone, sari-sari stores can really channel or bridge the gap between unserved, unconnected people and people and companies like ourselves. And we're now powering these MSMEs and these sari-sari stores with our Smart Padalana network and with our 40,000 agents. And they've become the one-stop shop for everything digital financial services within these communities. And as we build the better normal, the solution is no longer providing access one by one or one at a time, or merely having people register to an app, but it is building an inclusive ecosystem. That's the only way that we're going to make sure that nobody gets left behind. So this is what PayMaya and its partners, of which a lot of them are on this panel and this call today. This is what PayMaya and its partners have been doing and how we've been growing together. Today, a third of Filipinos use PayMaya, and many millions more are using our payment gateway, our payment processing platforms, regardless of which financial account they have, whether it's a PayMaya, a GCash, a ING, or any other financial institution. And across the country, the breadth of what we offer is 92% of the country's cities and municipalities rely on our 200,000 digital touchpoints to enable Filipinos to move money and aspire to what we think is a better future. So thank you for having me. Look forward to the rest of the speakers and panel.
Thank you, Paulo. I like what you mentioned about building an ecosystem. I'll ask you later on to expound on that. Now, I'd like to call Martha to discuss GCash.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you, all of you today. All three speakers talked about digital as the best way to address our country's lack of inclusivity, and I couldn't agree more. This shift to digital is definitely a more strategic and convenient way to access to all. It also opens up opportunities for businesses to introduce innovation that brings better value for the consumers. And Filipinos deserve to have more ways to protect and grow their money, especially during these difficult times that we are in. At GCash, every day we strive towards financial inclusion and freedom for all, and we always hope that towards that we make it a reality every day. And thankfully, we have made some strides in this direction, even with the many challenges of last year. First, we partnered with the government to implement a safer cashless social amelioration program distribution. So we became the most awarded partner, and we helped distribute 16 billion worth of government financial aid to more than 2 million Filipinos. And more than that, it saved the government a total of 952 days. Whereas, so what would have taken them around 3 years to distribute. It took us a few days, right, so that the money would get to the citizens. Secondly, we have seen evidence that we have penetrated previously unserved market segments. Now, not only office workers, but even enterprising Pinoy such as fisher folks, tricycle drivers, and palengke vendors are using GCash to accept cashless payments. And we've seen this go viral, I think, first quarter of the year. So that warms our heart. Thirdly, at a time when most people are afraid of getting ill, we have partnered with Globe to let subscribers try COVID-19 and dengue insurance through our G-Insure. And that's for free. At one point in time, we even doubled the daily registrations of insurance in the country. So that's how underserved the market really is. Our other financial services have provided Filipinos with peace of mind as well, with their simple user experience and best in market value. Ernest mentioned extensively about G-Invest. I won't go into the details of that. The next one is G-Save. We have a G-Save product which has one of the highest interest rates in the country, up to 4% per annum. And this product has become so popular that to date we already have over 3 million accounts. Lastly, for our fully digital credit line, G-Credit, we already have over 1.1 million active credit lines and disbursed a total of 12 billion in credit. What's more amazing actually is that our default rates are best in class. We know of a lot of lending companies which were really affected last year, but in our case, we were able to keep afloat. This is a testament to the reliability of our in-house trust platform, which we call G-Score. We have redefined creditworthiness and we do not let the lack of credit history be a hindrance to borrowing. We also make sure to lend responsibly and avoid burdening borrowers further with unpaid debt. These are the big wins that we celebrate as we come closer to financial freedom for all. We thank our users for the trust that they have given us, and we've stayed committed to serving their needs and as we strive to make more Filipinos' everyday lives better.
Thank you, Martha. And now, may I ask Grace?
Thank you, Marvic, and thank you to everyone, especially to Francis Lim, who invited me to this conference. It's such an honor. So at Grab, we are committed to leveraging our platform and technology to help Filipinos overcome their daily struggles, particularly during the pandemic, and really helping support all the Filipinos to achieve the country's longer-term socio-economic recovery. This is what makes Grab so attractive to me personally. This is particularly why I joined, because at the heart of Grab is really a social mission, which is to serve the Filipinos in however way we can through our Everyday Everything app. It's been a tough year. I guess that's an understatement. Been a tough year for everybody. I'm sure all the panelists and all the speakers here have felt that. I haven't seen friends and family for a while, and I really hope everything ends soon. But this forum actually reminded me of the good things. Al talked about partnerships and connectivity. Hans talked about inclusive growth, and Ernest talked about financial inclusion. All of those topics would really help all of us, I think, in this panel and in the speaker group are really trying our best to address everyday problems of Filipinos. And I'm so proud to be part of it. I think bayanihan is really the only way for the Philippines to move forward. And maybe sharing a few stories of how we at Grab have participated in this bayanihan effort can inspire maybe our listeners even further. A few ways. And it doesn't, I think in terms of my stories, it doesn't have to be big. So what I'm taking from all of this is, yes, we have major problems, but actually, so many of us can do so many things in all of the companies that we are part of. For us, the tipping feature, which we opened up at last year, actually helped a lot of our drivers. Prior to us talking about tipping, only 6% of our drivers and delivery partners received tips from people. And people would ask us, how do I help your drivers? How do I send money to your drivers? And so the tipping feature in our app, I know it's quite not maybe to this group, maybe not something that you even think about. It's 20 pesos, it could be 100 pesos, it could be 1 peso. But all of that goes to the drivers, and actually the drivers have become so much happier because of it. It's also a way for those that don't know how to reach our drivers and delivery partners to give. And to share maybe a part of their meal to those that bring your goods or your items from one place to the other. Also, one of the things we've done is to launch new products and services throughout the pandemic that would help. For example, like GrabMart is our pandemic baby. We didn't really have GrabMart before the pandemic, but because like our consumers ask for it, it's something that actually helps a lot of people. Like we have launched GrabMart during the pandemic. So to us, I guess, like the way that we're trying to help. And the way we're trying to fulfill our mission of leveraging our platform to help everyday Filipinos is to make sure that our eyes and ears are on the ground, and make sure that we listen to our consumers, create products and services around things that would really help many of our Filipinos, and always innovate around those and make those services and products better every day. So thank you for making me part of this, and it's very inspiring to hear everybody, the speakers and the panel, talk about how they're all helping, how we are all helping to go towards the next growth stage of the Philippines.
Thank you, Grace. You know, I could really relate to that. One of my first Grab um, orders was for plant pots. And the Grab driver who came to my house told me that he was supposed to go to his brother to ask for money, but took this particular ride. And when he saw the money and the tip that I gave him, he was teary eyed. He was saying he now has money to buy rice. So I could just really feel that there are so many people now being helped by the digital platforms that you all guys are providing. Without it, maybe we would have a bigger problem when it comes to livelihood and so on. Now, when we talk about technology, indeed, it provides business and income opportunities to a broader segment of the population, especially those in the lower income bracket. Through digital platforms, as Ray mentioned earlier, they can have access to affordable financing and capital, capability to reach out to a bigger market, increase sales through group marketing, because now they can rely on you guys to do the marketing rather than them doing it themselves, and top systems that provide efficient logistics support. Now, there are areas, these are the areas that small and medium-sized enterprises have really difficulty scaling up their businesses because they do not have enough capital to build the traditional brick and mortar stores. Now, let us first discuss access to affordable financing and capital. Now, the Bata Central in 2019 said that 70% of the adult population remain unbanked. And all of you have been saying this throughout the presentations. And the reasons that were cited were lack of money, lack of documentary requirements, and interestingly, refusal to open a bank account. So they may have the money, they may have the requirements, but they hesitate to open a bank account. Now, GCash and PayMaya are leaders in mobile money and payments, and they allow users to pay for products and services without bank accounts. Question to Paolo and Martha. Can you describe to us what is the demographic profile of your subscribers? Are they coming from the unbanked sector? Who would like to go first? Paolo?
Sure, I can start. Well, first of all, an initial phase, and then there's a phase, and then there's an affirmation phase. Now, in the initial phase, of course, when PayMaya launched in 2015, the target market was clearly different than what it is today. We started off looking for, as our target market, for people who were within a certain age bracket, between 18 and probably 35 years old, people who had their first-time job or students, people who were really in the underbanked segment of the population. And because we, of course, are a mobile app, or part of what we offer is a mobile app, then of course there's a requirement for a smartphone or a connection or some sort of a data connection to be there. Now, as we expanded our product offering, as we started capturing our first initial base of customers, of course, that sphere of influence or that distribution reach actually increased. And at this point, it's very difficult to say who our target market is, because everyone in the Philippines happens to be our target market. We see people who are fully banked, similar to people in other countries. In the US, for example, there are a lot of people who are banked who use Venmo. In Europe, Revolut. In China, WeChat and Alipay. And in the Philippines, people who are fully banked, who have access to mortgages and the most complex products that banks are offering, are also using GCash and PayMaya for a lot of their requirements on a day-to-day basis. And so we've really seen that we've expanded ourselves from the underserved and unserved to the fully banked segment too. There's a segment, of course, of the underserved or underbanked, which are the people who have perhaps a payroll account, but were only given an ATM card that they can extract cash from an ATM with. They don't have access to credit. They cannot save money. They don't have access to money sending capabilities. And of course, they cannot buy on Lazada using their bank card. And therefore, what they do is they open a PayMaya account or a GCash account to give themselves a chance to access the financial world, not just in nominal terms, but also in real terms. And so that's what we've seen, is that the underserved or underbanked part of the population has really formed one of the big, or if not the biggest chunk of our customer bases. But what's dearest to our hearts, and I think where PayMaya and GCash can have a much bigger impact on the Philippines, is actually in the unbanked segment. And that, I think, is where our reach across the entire country, with our Smart Padala stores, with the fact that people can go into their local sari-sari store or their barangay store to make a financial transaction, that really is where we're changing the game completely from you have a smartphone and a bank account and you can now use PayMaya and GCash, to you have none of the above, but you still want to be financially included. Go to your local store, to your barangay store, to your sari-sari store, and make a financial transaction there. Pay your bill there, get a loan out there, send money there, get airtime for your mobile phone there. That's something that really changes the game, and that includes the 70% of people that you were mentioning earlier from that BSP statistic. And that obviously is what is the final frontier for us, banking those people or giving a better chance for those people to access financial services.
Thank you, Paolo. Martha, would you like to add anything?
Yes, to echo what Paolo said, right now, I think we're targeting everyone. Prior to 2020, it was easy to assume that mobile wallets were only for the young and tech savvy. But now with 38 million in our platform, we can definitely say that this has changed, and we now have people from all walks of life using GCash. As I mentioned earlier, we found that like the enterprising Pinoys, the fisher folks, the tricycle drivers, even the palengke vendors are inside our app. They're using it already. And with the social amelioration program, of course, we were able to distribute to the people who are really in need. So imagine more than 2 million recipients of that. I think what worked well for us is that, because you mentioned, okay, parang why is there very low bank penetration, right? What GCash has is actually a world-class eKYC. So unfortunately, in this country, we don't have a national ID yet. So we have that as a substitute. So we are able to verify the identity of people and get them onboarded right away. And it's almost real time if you have the right requirements. So imagine that you only have to do that and you'll have access to all these services that you can enjoy, not only in financial aid, but send and receive money, which has been the really most popular use case, I think, for both PayMaya and GCash and other e-wallets. I just wanted to add to what Grace was saying earlier about the tipping. We also noticed that we have this send money with a click feature in our app, which actually allows subscribers to send virtual cards or messages to other people when they send money. And we've seen that spike. So people are sending not just money, but messages to comfort or to make people to make people happy or to give something just to communicate and enhance their communication to others in this situation where we're all apart. So I think that's what I can tell you about the profile of what we have. And one more thing, I saw in the comment space, what's the profile of gender in terms of adoption in the digital service? Well, in GCash, I must say that we have a bit more female users than the male ones. So digital adoption among female is high, relatively higher among versus male. That's in our platform, and that's as of today. So maybe it could change tomorrow or in the following month.
But do you analyze the profile of your users, like their location, geography, I guess number of, are they prepaid phone users or postpaid? Because that might be an indicator more or less on their economic, income strata.
Oh yes, we do. We do. I think in the mobile wallet space, the data organization is quite robust, and we analyze our data from a diversity of use cases to also the profile. So we've even sub-segmented our base to, I think, 39 user profiles, and not just in terms of their usage, but to derived profile. Are you a mom? Are you a gamer? Are you a small and medium business owner, a social seller? And do you and yes, to your point, location also. So we know all those things and the behavior from e-commerce to telco and others.
Thank you.
I'd like
Thank
to
you,
add to
Martha.
that comment of Martha, if I may. I think
Yes,
again in this digital space, digital world, analytics plays a huge role. I mean, there's so much data points now that everything is digital. So I think there's an opportunity for most companies to really use analytics as a way to move forward now. I remember the time it was all, some of it was gut feel in terms of making business decisions. That's still there, I think, but now you have more informed gut feels because analytics is supporting that today.
Thank you. Good point, Al. Now let me turn to Hans. Hans, ING is a big brand, right? There is a perception that most of your customers are really coming already from the bank sector, bank segment of the population. Is ING still aiming to attract the unbanked or underbanked people? And how are you convincing them to try the platform and make use of it more frequently?
Well, first of all, maybe I like to say that very much like the other speakers, and we have Paula and Martha talking about really saying that everyone is a potential client. That's no different for ourselves. And the reason for that is maybe the digital interface, right? And when you hear a conversation like this, where a lot of, let's call it, end users are beginning to try and utilize their, whether it's primarily their mobile phone, to use a digital service, that actually is the opening gambit, so to speak, in terms of interest in any particular product, ours included. So I would say that number one, it might be the perception that that's the case, but if you take a look also at let's call it new to bank clients, I wouldn't say that all of them are necessarily already banked, but it's probably easier to educate somebody to give you a try if you're already working with another bank, right? So that might be where the perception comes from. I think the second point to add, and this is why it's very interesting to listen to this discussion, something I mentioned earlier, why regulation is probably just as important and maybe interfacing with the policymakers. Martha quite articulated very well that you need to have a robust eKYC platform, and obviously, and Paolo talking about very good credit lending, let's call it algorithms, right? Now that's partly the issue, because our regulators tend to maybe look at different providers in very strict verticals. The reality is, this discussion demonstrates that there's almost an integration of, are you talking about retail, logistics, finance, mobile telephony, right? But all of these are actually, let's call it, regulated or perhaps even reviewed very strictly according to the old economy. You know, a telephone company is one where actually puts up, copper lines and connects a phone there. That's not the case. And the fact that you can sell mutual funds through all of these platforms, and you recall that Alipay was going to do the largest IPO in this sector. If it went through, it would have had a larger market cap than JP Morgan. Of course, it didn't come through. Maybe the regulators realized that there were some gaps in there. But that tells you that Ray can sell perhaps the same thing that Paolo and Martha can sell. And the eKYC issue is the same for all of us. So I know that there's a movement to a national ID system, which is one thing. But by the way, we in the Bankers Association are trying to actually encourage the authorities that it's not necessarily an ID, a physical ID that you associate, but actually a means of identifying a unique identifier for every person. That will actually spur, this whole discussion, even and the use function even further. And that also, by the way, will spur the use case, whether you're a bank or originally from a telecoms provider, which now has an app. So I think the point I'm making is that our target market is really everyone around who would care to try and use it. And it's interesting that different firms are faced with constraints, mainly because of either legacy or history. And the way that you've seen firms in this group kind of cope with the regulatory restrictions is basically doing spend to figure out their own data analytics for credit, figure out their own eKYC processes to actually substitute for perhaps what might be an easier national ID system or national identifier. And yet we're able to do it. And the fact that the unbanked sector, as per maybe, let's call it BSP definitions, doesn't really mean, as Ernest said earlier, that you're unbanked. You might be underbanked because you are using a PayMaya solution, a GCash solution, and in fact, ordering stuff from Ray and taking a ride with Grace's grab cars. So, sorry, long answer, but I think I just wanted to make that point.
You're actually offering no fees, no minimum amount to open, no minimum amount to earn interest, right? Is that something that is encouraging people to shift from the traditional bank to your platform?
Well,
have you received such feedback from your customers?
Well, yeah, sure. Of course, these are and comments, perhaps a few are saying, is that true or too good to be true type of thing. So as I was saying earlier, in a way, we have been disrupting the old brick and mortar banking standard, right? Where essentially for every movement you'll make, you'll charge a fee here. You need a minimum amount to earn interest or a minimum amount of time for it to be deposited to earn any or a higher interest rate. So we're trying to simplify things. And I think clearly that has increased the use case, number one. I think number two, it also proves one thing that I guess everyone in this ecosystem has kind of discussed. As you actually invest in the, let's call it the infrastructure necessary, the hope and maybe the reality for some of us that over time, average costs come down. Clearly, marginal costs should come down a lot faster than if you had, and if I make the example now, a brick and mortar bank, such that one can actually afford to pass on some of that operating cost perhaps to what a client should be receiving. So that's kind of the general gist of how and why, fully digital operations, at least if you can scale up, should be able to do that. And I guess we're lucky enough being ING that we have the parentage where globally it is what it's been doing. So we're kind of like replicating that here locally and trying, in fact, to take advantage of those theorems, hopefully turned into reality.
Thank you, Hans. I totally agree with you. I'm a happy ING client. Now let's move on. Let's move the discussion now to bigger market, increase sales through group marketing, and tapping efficient logistics support system. These are the things that small businesses need to grow. So I'd like to address the first question to Ray. During the pandemic, did you see an increase in your partner merchants? Was there a change in the profile? Were there new, were the branded products coming in? Or do you see the smaller businesses wanting to join your platform?
Thank you, Marivic. Definitely, we saw an increase now. I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier now, but today we onboard 3 times more sellers a day than we did pre-COVID, which was in Feb. And we did see a surge in brands, but it can't compare to the MSME growth. Definitely, the onboarding of brands every month is much larger than it was pre-COVID. There are brands who would not even consider selling online or on an e-commerce platform. They were the ones actually initiating the conversation. But again, on the MSME side, that the traction there has been much faster. And then I have to also add that we enabled Lazada Fresh. So we enabled sellers to deliver their own products, but use our resources to get customers, right? And we enabled them to sell meat, fish, vegetables, and even ice cream. Right? We didn't allow this before the pandemic. So definitely the opportunities and adoption by MSMEs and sellers, as well as brands, but not to the same extent, has increased significantly during COVID.
Top of mind, can you cite some examples of, I guess, small businesses that have grown significantly through your platform? Or are there businesses in the Philippines that have been able to offer their services or goods even to markets outside the Philippines?
Yeah, so offering to markets outside Philippines is not within the scope of Lazada, since we are a Southeast Asian player, and we're not doing intra-Southeast Asian sales today. It makes more sense for us to enable China to Philippines sales as opposed to intra-Southeast Asia. But an example, we had a seller who ran 2 restaurants, okay, and offering Mediterranean cuisine. And because of COVID, there's no one in the restaurant, right? But he opened a store in Lazada, and he was very thankful that Lazada has saved his life. and the life of 32 employees that work for him. His sales today more than make up for his 2 restaurants. Right? So that's just an example of what we've been able to help MSMEs with.
Right. Thank you, Ray. To Martha, Gcash, how are you able to help your users onboard quickly on the platform?
So we have eKYC powered by Zolos, and Zolos is considered a world best in class platform that allows us to verify and check the validity. It even has facial recognition, so we can check our database and make sure that the subscriber is valid. That's in the absence of a national ID. Of course, the best way pa rin later on would be to use a national ID, and we support that. So that's how we're doing now. And just as an addition to what Ray was saying about empowering the MSMEs, we've seen tremendous growth in our base for this sector, and we see it among social sellers. So these are the subscribers who use Gcash, but they sell, example, on Instagram, FB Marketplace, Viber communities. So, and we were able to analyze that and identify them through data analytics, of course. And we know that they've been using our platform at a time when the world closed down on them. They had nowhere to go to. So some went to Lazada, some went to other social media platforms, and most of them actually used mobile wallets like Gcash and Paymaya for their payment needs. So we've seen this balloon. We are now, I think, we now have more than 1.6 million social sellers in our platform. So recently also we launched GLife. It's more than e-commerce. So any industry who wants to go digital, but they don't know how to, or they don't have the resources to do so, they can immediately get into our GLife. This is like a mini app of the other super apps in the world, like WeChat, and Financial, Alipay. So they have this platform, and we have that inside Gcash. So now we're barely like a quarter since the launch, and we already have around 50 companies inside our app. So anyone, whether you're a big enterprise or a small business, and you want a storefront, or you want to help in fulfilling your business, you can get inside our app and take advantage of the 38 million subscribers that we have. So that's the digital footprint that we provide.
Excellent work. Grace, so clearly the Grab passenger vehicles saw decline because of the pandemic, but definitely there were goods that need to be shipped and moved. So how do you engage with how does Grab engage with your drivers? How do you build this ecosystem of partners and support them through these trying times?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Marivic. So there are a few ways. First of all, one of the things that we always keep in mind is that our delivery and driver partners are business partners. So they're not our employees, they're not our staff, they're our business partners. So we treat them like business partners. And throughout the course of the pandemic, we've actually used a lot of tools, especially social media, to talk to them on a daily and weekly basis. So we talk to all our drivers. We have forums daily, weekly for both our drivers, our four-wheel drivers, and their two-wheel delivery partners, so that we know their concerns on a day-to-day and week-on-week basis. And through that, we're able to create programs that would address those needs. So maybe giving you an example. Like during the height of the ECQs, because last year's ECQ was very different from this year's ECQ in that transport was not allowed last year. So there were no taxis, no four-wheel activity during that time. So all our drivers were really at a loss on what to do, because if you can imagine, they had zero income over the course of that strict lockdown. What we did was we helped them move from being a four-wheel driver to a two-wheel driver. So we helped them through virtual trainings. We helped them move so that they can have livelihood still, despite the very strict lockdown. So we do that. We also partnered with companies like Microsoft to provide online training in different skill sets. So not just in driving or delivering the best customer service, but believe it or not, we have trainings about different skills. Like for example, coding or communication skills or selling skills if they wanted to. And that's with a partnership that we have with Microsoft. And actually happy to let you know that some of our drivers have become either interns or employees of Grab. So I mean, in the real sense of the word. So really happy to let you know that we are thinking about this not just in the present. So in the present, what we're doing is keeping our ears on the ground, engaging them, talking to them on a daily and weekly basis, really every day. We talk to our drivers every day and asking them about what they need or how we can help. And then also preparing them for the future, for the different permutations of what the future could hold.
Great. Okay, so everyone in this group, in this panel, is creating opportunities for business and for income generating activities. What about jobs? All of you were saying there was an increased demand from customers. Did you experience increases in employees? What type of skills did you need, and what was your experience in recruiting these talents? Anyone would like to pick up that question? Maybe Ray?
As I mentioned, right, what we've seen, the increase we've seen is more on our seller base, and of course all the implied jobs that come with that. A seller has to maintain their store, has to do online promotions, has to run an operation, which may involve operating a warehouse. Any seller that's going live in Lazada will, as they grow, increase their investment into that space and obviously provide more job opportunities. As a company, since we're a platform, very much like Grab, we don't tend to scale with our seller base, right? Because the marginal cost for us to add a new seller or a new user is close to zero, right? Mm-hmm. So we do have an increase, but it will never be proportionate to the size of the business and the assortment base.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Now, as a final question, I'd like to go back to Al. Now, several businesses are saying that what we're seeing now would be the new normal, and people will continue to use the digital platforms that we've been using for the past year. Do you agree with these observations, or will businesses go back to the old way?
Yeah, I think the past is the past. I think the new normal is going to be very different. We're already experiencing it today. Not only because of the lockdown. I think if you look at the companies in the room, you have ING, who is really a major bank but going into digital. You have Grab. You have actually Ray from GCash, Lazada. See Marta from GCash and Paolo Paymaya. It's changed the way business is done, and it's not that the pandemic, of course, obviously accelerated the change, but those business models were challenged by technology for a long time, for the past few years. So going digital is a disruption to current business models. No? You talk about great examples like Uber and Airbnb. These are models that have completely disrupted the old business model, and technology has brought that about. No, with this lockdown, it's even pushed it even more, and really the change in behavior of customers is really going to be there moving forward. I don't think it's going to revert back to the old days of completely brick and mortar. In fact, the push for the pandemic is how do you go digital? I mean, from a PLDT point of view, I mean, we mentioned about huge capex we're spending. We had to hire people to do installation because infrastructure at the end of the day needs warm bodies to put that fiber in your room, fiber in the offices, right? So there is a ramp up in terms of requirements for installers, but there's also a shift in competencies going towards digital, going towards automation, going towards analytics, as I mentioned earlier. These are key areas that will change the way we work. Automation, process improvements, and all of that. Eventually, robotics will come into play with 5G there. You have teleconsulting. You don't have to go to Stanford anymore or Singapore to do your medical appointments. You can do it over the air, and you can send your X-rays or whatever tests you need to send over either 5G or fiber. So it's changed the world completely, and really this pandemic has just accelerated that change. Exciting, scary, uncertain, but I think it's, again, a lot of the discussions today here is excellent in terms of where I think people should really take a look at their own lives and their own businesses.
Thank you, Al, and thank you all to our panel members. Now, I hope you will indulge me for a few moments. We'd like to take a group picture. So I hope everyone has his video on, and who's going to count? Anna?
Yeah, you're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. It's a perfect afternoon, everyone. I enjoy the conversation. Now, may I call on our president, Mr. Jimmy Ismael, for some words of acknowledgement to close our program.
Thank you, Marivic. Thank you to all of our speakers and panelists for joining us this afternoon. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to wreak havoc on the lives of people and the economy, especially with the current global surge that we are now experiencing. But history has repeatedly shown that crises of this proportion eventually end. And these crises are usually followed by a period of significant economic activity and prosperity. The inevitable economic recovery will definitely happen, as the disruptions caused by this crisis usually lead to humankind adapting to the change and transforming their ways of doing things in a manner that leads to significant breakthroughs in technology and innovation, as we have seen with all of the things that our speakers and panelists have discussed with us today, this afternoon. These breakthroughs are now happening before us as the economic challenges brought about by the pandemic are forcing companies to reinvent themselves, tweak their business models, and accelerate digital transformation. As a result, despite the barriers and challenges in a low-touch economy, companies in the telco, banking, retail, transportation, and logistics industries, represented by our speakers and panelists this afternoon, to name a few, have responded well and are thriving. Even the traditional bricks and mortar companies like real estate are also transforming themselves to adapt to the digital economy. Now, so these companies have offered a slew of new services and solutions that made it possible to connect people and enterprises, provide access to essential services and economic activity to people that are geographically and economically challenged, and in the process, expand the reach and economic impact of these initiatives to more people and enterprises in an inclusive manner. Increased internet coverage and bandwidth, digital payment solutions, internet banking channels, e-commerce platforms, mobile on-demand logistics and fulfillment services have democratized access to these services for all Filipinos, regardless of income class. And this allowed Filipinos to continue working, doing business, transacting, and getting about their daily lives using these new channels. In the process, these have spurred increased economic activity. Despite the pandemic, and fostered inclusive economic growth that allowed even micro, small, and medium enterprises to continue doing business and at the same time flourish. These innovations and breakthroughs will permanently change the business landscape in a post-pandemic environment and will lead to an accelerated pace of economic development and more inclusive economic growth moving forward. We hope all of you found the presentations and subsequent discussions interesting and insightful, as we have painstakingly assembled a very impressive list of keynote speakers and panelists from the key sectors that are leading the way towards economic recovery. On behalf of SharePHIL, I would like to thank our keynote speakers and panelists, Ernest Koo of Globe Telecom, Hans Sikat of ING Bank, Al Panlilio of PLDT Smart, Martha Sason of GCash, Grace Veracruz of Grab, and Ray Alimurong of Lazada, and Paolo Azola of Paymaya for sharing with us their valuable insights this afternoon. We would also like to thank our sponsors, Ayala Land, RLC Residences, and SM Investments Corporation, who are our co-presenters for today, as well as our other sponsors whose names are flashed on the screen, for making this webinar possible. A big thanks also to our various media partners, our friends and colleagues from the other business organizations and other institutions whom we have collaborated with in promoting this webinar. And of course, thanks to our MC, Maisiga Bisnar, and our moderator, Marivic Españo, for very ably leading this afternoon session. And of course, our SharePHIL Secretariat and the Summit Committee for making this happen. We look forward to welcoming you all again during our next summit in August, where we will continue to tackle inclusive economic recovery as a key theme with a focus on stakeholder centricity. Thank you all for attending this afternoon's webinar, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The news never stops.
Yung pulang area, yan po yung heavy rainfall.
Nais daw magsagawa ng phased clinical trials dito sa Pilipinas.
The country's premier news channel continues to deliver headlines and top stories.
Headline inflation likely quicks for the fourth straight month in January.
Is there anything at all that can legally stop them from doing that?
Private Motor Vehicle Inspection Center na pinapatupad ng Department of Transportation.
The news never stops. Neither do we.
for every memory, a special place.
Got something you want to share to the world? We got you, fam! We are looking for awesome people like you who want to share content that deserve a spotlight on our site. Whether it's a list of everything you love about catos and doggos, pop culture related artworks, or even your own random photos, memes, and funny videos, we'd be happy to see it and share it to the world. Join our award-winning team and be part of our Ink-Pop creator community.
Tired of missing the latest news? Get the Inquirer mobile app to get the latest stories and updates as they happen. The Inquirer mobile app is an easy-to-use app with quick access to stories and also enhances your experience on other Inquirer platforms. The Inquirer mobile app also lets you recommend stories for the Inquirer front page and share stories on various social platforms. Have a story to tell? Be an Inquirer reporter with the My Inquirer function. Now that's news anytime, anywhere, always.
For almost 3 decades, Robinsons Land Corporation has grown with you as an industry leader that continues to uphold its legacy in the property landscape, alongside its equally successful affiliates spread throughout the nation. As a subsidiary of one of the largest conglomerates in the Philippines, JG Summit Holdings Incorporated, Robinsons Land establishes competitive names in various industries that paved its way to becoming a trusted brand in the country. Today, a fresh perspective on Philippine real estate will take condo living to a whole new level with a bolder and stronger brand. RLC Residences is a brand that every family and young urban professional will be proud to own, allowing you to raise, live, connect. Immerse yourself with elevated lifestyle experiences, world-class design, and elegant living spaces that enrich everyday life. Experience meaningful digital solutions and innovations, spaces that work for you and your loved ones. A promise of quality that transcends everyday living. Swift connections that get you close to the action, empowering you with mobility that gives you an edge. All supportive of your quest to have a rewarding life and career. Among its extensive portfolio of prime residential developments, RLC Residences gives you the power to choose more than just an investment, but a home that lets you embrace the future with the people you share the journey with. RLC Residences raises the game and elevates lifestyle experiences, allowing you to live in the future with a balanced lifestyle while connecting with people most important to you. To top it all, these award-winning developments are curated with you in mind to make city living worth pursuing. As we step into the new chapter, creating stronger and bolder selections of prime residential developments, we continue to look forth with the same enthusiasm that blossomed 3 decades ago. The same passion and determination that brought us to where we are now. As one RLC Residences, together, we invite you to embrace the future with RLC Residences.